Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Women Veterans Alliance Unconference Speaker Webinar Series. And for those of you that may or may not know, we had to postpone our annual unconference due to the pandemic, and that will take place next October 2021. But in the meantime, we wanted to make sure that we were able to connect you with all of our fantastic speakers that we had lined up to speak at our unconference this year. And so this is our second one that we're going to have. But one of the things too is I wanted to make sure that all of you, again, just stay muted. If you want to show your video, you can. Feel free to use the chat box and you can ask questions. There will be time for Q&A at the end. But if you're not connected with us, feel free to connect with Women Veterans Alliance. And if you don't know who I am, I'm Melissa Washington. I'm the CEO and founder of Women Veterans Alliance. And feel free to connect with us on all the different social media platforms, as well as YouTube, which is not shown on here, because if you wanted to come back and watch this, it will be on our YouTube channel. So feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search Women Veterans Alliance. And one of the things that I wanted to do a giveaway is if you haven't been to our store, if you go to Women Veterans Alliance, our website, and you just click on the store, we have a lot of great items up for sale. And just for you being on this call, when you go to checkout, we'll give you 10% off. Just use AUGWVA at the checkout and you'll get 10% off here at the store. So again, AUGWVA, have to use it by August 31st. So this is our second one we had last week, and today is Jill Wolfe, Why You Aren't Taking Action. So a little bit about her. She served in the United States Army 1995 to 1998, is Grand Valley State University's first military and veteran resource manager. Yahoo, that's great. She teaches advertising and public relations courses at Grand Valley, serves as a mentor for the Michigan Veterans Entrepreneur Lab, and is a founding executive committee member of GVSU's Veterans Alumni Association. Previously, she worked as a communication sales writer in the corporate world and as a public affairs office for United States Army. She has assisted women veterans through her volunteer involvement and mentorship with WINK for all women veterans. In 2019, she was a national runner-up for the Military Sisterhood Initiative's Excellence and Exemplary Achievement Award, given to women veterans who honor, empower, encourage, and restore women of the military. She is living right now in Grand Rapids, Michigan with her husband, 5 kids, and enjoys backpacking with her dog, Howie. Jill, welcome. I am so looking forward to this, and it's all yours.
Oh, thank you, Melissa. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm always kind of jump at the chance to get the opportunity to connect with women veterans. It's something that totally fires me up. I love working with women. I love working with women veterans. I love working with women veteran entrepreneurs. I, as Melissa said, just got hired in this new position working in higher education. So that's been really interesting with everything going on with COVID to try to figure out how we work with military connected students, getting them the resources that they need in order to be successful at school. I think it's hard enough just to show up every day. So Melissa gave me a really great background. So I'll just leave it at that and just let you know that I do a lot of work with women, coaching both the students, my entrepreneurs group, and just trying, to give my part to really help women get out of what they're stuck in and some new ways of thinking to try to move forward and get them closer to their goals, because we need the work that you're doing out there in the world, the dreams and the goals and the outcomes that you're looking to achieve. We can't make this world a better place without you. And so I'm hoping that today you'll get to take away with just one or two things that will really help you move you closer to where you want to be. So my first slide here, I have to say that when I was searching for an image, I think the Google term I used was thinking woman. And this came up with sad girl sunset, which I just thought was kind of funny, but also, maybe some of us have spent some time looking out at sunsets, feeling a little sad about the state of the world. And so yeah, maybe just hopefully move you more into Sad Girl Sunset and more into Thinking Woman as the webinar goes on today. So next slide. So there's me as a baby. I served 3 years in the US Army. I was a military intelligence specialist, but never actually worked in the job, as sometimes is common with the military. And there's sort of an interesting story about how I joined. I was doing my freshman year at college, and I came home for Thanksgiving break, and my parents sat me down and said, "We need you to get a job to help pay tuition." And I threw a huge fit and didn't want to do it. And they held firm, and they left to go pick up my grandmother from the airport. And as the garage door was sort of coming down, the phone rang. And with the world's most incredible timing, a recruiter said, "How would you like $30,000 for college?" So that was in the fall of '94. And I said, "Wow, we should talk." And nobody in my family had ever been in the military before. It was nothing I'd ever considered up until that point. But it was, college was kind of, it wasn't doing it for me. I thought there was probably more to life. And when my parents sort of handed me this challenge, being 19 years old, I took them up on it. And later they said, "Oh, no, no, no." When I told them I was enlisting, "Oh, well, we'll pay for college. Don't worry about it." And I said, "No, this is what I'm doing." So and we're going to talk a little bit more about that decision and sort of actually the nitty gritty of how it came to be in a little bit. But that's me, like I said, as a baby in Korea, getting my E4. Up there in the right-hand corner is a group of women that belongs to an organization I started called Outdoor Book Club. So I love being outdoors and talking about books. So we do backpacking and hiking and kayaking and all that fun stuff. And then below that is when I won a business plan competition after I'd been in the corporate world doing sales and marketing for about 20 years. I sort of got back into the military life, found this competition I could be part of, and won some money, and was able to leave the corporate world and start my own business, Outdoor Book Club, which later turned into another business called Go Scavenger Hunts, where we would do corporate team building with companies like Nike and Home Depot. And then once COVID hit, that kind of all went away. Like 3 days, all my contracts, all the money we had coming in for the rest of the year just disappeared. And that also happened to be the exact same time that this job at Grand Valley working with student veterans showed up. So it's been kind of a crazy, wild ride, but so far it seemed to have worked out pretty well for me. So, okay, next slide. Okay, before we start, I want you to kind of think about maybe some goals that you have. And maybe they're big goals, like applying for a new position, quitting your job, quitting a relationship maybe. It could be small goals. I know during COVID, my goal was to clean out the bathroom closet. Like if I could do that, then I felt like I was productive and had gotten something done. And it took almost the entire lockdown we had here in Michigan for me to get to the point where I could clean out my bathroom closet, but I finally did it. So think about those goals. And then in the chat box, why don't you go ahead, and you don't have to get anything really specific, but if you could just type in like what's holding you back from reaching those goals. And sometimes that's all we need too, is just to think really, be really specific and think about it in a way we haven't, but go ahead and say what might be holding you back. So self-motivation, okay, that's what Renee says. For a lot of us, self-motivation, feeling overwhelmed, there's another one. Not knowing the right path to take, right? All of this kind of boils down to one thing, and that's fear, right? And so today we're going to spend kind of the first half of the webinar talking about fear, and then the second half talking about something that's very related to fear, that if you're not feeling like you're feeling something related to fear, I bet it's going to be this other thing I'm going to talk about, but we'll get to that in a second. So time management, yep, fear failure, says Susie, totally get it, right? We have all been there. So next slide. So there's a book that's out called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyways. I read a lot of books, have not read that one, but I've always loved the sentiment of that title, right? Because feeling fear, I feel like we're maybe missing a slide. Can we go back one? There we go. Fear is a given. Let's start there. Let's start with just talking about how fear is something that everybody deals with. It's something that our ancestors dealt with, and they had very good reason to deal with fear, right? Whether they were going to get eaten by a tiger, whether they were going to be able to feed their families, all that kind of stuff. That's how our brain plays in with fear, right? It is to keep us safe and to keep us aware of, things that might kill or hurt us or the people we love. The only problem with that, as you can imagine, is that we aren't really on the savannah anymore. We don't need to worry about tigers eating us. We don't need to worry about having enough food. We don't need to be worried about not having shelter, right? Yet our brain still goes to the place often where it thinks that we're in that kind of trouble. And so we've all been in the place where that fear has just really taken over and kept us from performing. But what I want to posit today is that maybe that fear isn't something to necessarily be scared of. And maybe it's more of a sign that you just need to work on better managing the thoughts that you have in your head, right? The thoughts that we have often lead to beliefs and feelings often lead to actions, and those actions determine our results. So there's kind of a chain reaction there that often starts with thoughts. So if you can get a better handle on the thoughts that are going on in your head and being able to sort of discern between which ones are helpful and which ones are not helpful, you're going to go a long way towards reaching your goals. So looking back on fear, it's not an excuse for not taking action. We use it. It happens to all of us. It's a very human thing, but we have to be really sort of honest with ourselves that using fear as a reason for not taking action just it's not a valid excuse. And so I'm going to go ahead and ask you to put that mantra in your head. You're going to feel this fear and you're going to do it anyways. Take these steps anyways. Next slide. Okay, so why do we want to feel the fear and do it anyways? I think it would be just so much more comfortable for us to sit at home and watch Netflix and eat and have beers and not go outside our house and not do scary things and not put ourselves out there so that we could be hurt, right? Well, one of the things I want to offer is that when we do things that are scary, we get practice at it, right? And when you get practice at something, you get better at it. And we would all probably like to be a little bit better at dealing with fear. An example I always use from my own life is that I went through a divorce 9 years ago. And as divorces go, it was fairly amicable. But my ex-husband pretty quickly found a girlfriend who then became his wife. And we have 2 kids together. And going to those family gatherings, those first few family gatherings where she was there and he was there and I was there by myself and the kids were there, we're all just showing up for the kids, right? Because that's kind of what you got to do. You got to put on your big girl panties and really just show up for the kids. And it sucked at first. It was excruciating and I was full of anxiety and depression. But after the first one, it was awful. Second one, still pretty bad. Third one, I started to realize there really wasn't that much to be afraid of. Like we were all grown-ups there. We all had the kids' best interest at heart. And the more that I was able to show up at these kind of difficult, anxiety-inducing family dinners and events and outings, the more I sort of realized that it's not that bad. Like I can handle this. And in fact, it even got to the point where it finally got to be fun and it was fine. And now I can hang out with my ex and the kids and his wife and all sorts of family members. And it's just not a big deal at all. So I learned a little bit about setting boundaries, which was always a good thing, right? When you do this kind of work, you learn a little bit about yourself and what works for you. But yeah, it was a tough thing, but practice makes perfect when it comes to confronting your fear. The other thing I want to say is that feeling fear is actually a good thing, right? If we didn't feel fear, it would mean that we didn't care, that we weren't compassionate, that we weren't passionate about projects and ideas and people in our lives, right? It means we're not psychopaths. We're not running around just doing everything for ourselves and not caring about anyone else and not actually having feelings and emotions. And that third bullet point is something that always makes me feel better when I'm out there facing a really big project, like even showing up here today to kind of do these presentations online. that even people like Oprah, Beyonce, right, Venus Williams, all of those women, Michelle Obama, they show up every day in their lives and they feel fear too. We know this, they've said as much, and we also know that they're human, right? So that somehow, and when I think of that, sometimes gives me a little bit of strength to know that all these amazing, powerful women who I admire, they feel fear and they manage to get their goals taken care of. And then finally, I just want to say that beyond fear is where all the good stuff in life is, right? That is where we feel empowered, we feel connected, we are moving things forward, not only for ourselves, for our families, for our communities, for the organizations we work for. That is amazing, incredible work. And I would suggest that that stuff is waiting for you if you can get a handle on your thinking and your fear and move past it. Okay, next slide. Let's talk a little bit about what fear looks like in your brain. Talked already sort of about in back on the savannah when we were trying to survive, we had this sort of fight or flight. We've all heard that term before, on how we take care of ourselves and how we protect ourselves. And that still shows up today. And just as sort of a caveat, I want to talk a little bit about women in fear, right? If women feel more fear than men, and that's a gross generalization, but I think it's something we can all to some extent identify with, it's for really good reasons, right? As women, we traditionally have been at the mercy of men. It's, things are changing, and it's been great to see this change even in the last couple of years, where we take more control of our lives. But our mothers, our grandmothers, our great-grandmothers, and way on back depended on men to protect them and provide food. If they were not pleasant, right? If they were not there to make the men feel comfortable and happy, then it was very possible that we would get kicked out and not have anybody to protect us or our children. So we have generations of fear in our bones. So when you're scared about, stepping up on a stage or taking the next big step towards your goals, just understand it comes from a pretty solid place. That doesn't mean that you can't not overcome it. That's possible, but just understand, like, these feelings are really strong, and it's appropriate that you feel sort of scared and not sure how to deal with them. Briefly, I think fear can be fun for those of us that love roller coasters and horror movies. For me, I love backpacking, and occasionally I do it by myself. I bring my dog. And even now, years after doing it, sleeping outside, if I hear a twig snap, it just sends my brain into overload, right? It's just all the crazy things that are happening outside. And while it's not a whole lot of fun to go through like that exact moment in the middle of the night to feel that fear, and it happens every single time I'm out there in the woods, like that's never going to go away, I still keep going back out there. Even if, there's women around, my friends, even if I have my dog, that fear is still there. But at the end of the day, having gone out there and been outside and been in the woods and to hear the birds sing and get the fresh air is totally worth it. And it's actually kind of fun. I like being the kind of person that goes camping by themselves and can do that and not worry about it. Fear can also get us moving, right? If we're really super comfortable and there's no reason for us to change or move, then we would stay stuck, right? And all of us have probably been in those situations before where everything's fine, right? Or we've known people that just get so comfortable and they've been provided everything, yet they never get any closer to their goals and they never reach anything. So having that fear of losing the job or being stuck in the job forever, or stuck in the relationship, or not actually following your dreams, not writing the book, not starting the business, that fear can actually be really motivating and get you moving. And then finally, I'd like to just posit that for me, the best feeling in the whole world is being proud of myself, right? Knowing that there was something hard to do and I figured out a way how to do it, how to manage my mind and manage my circumstances and plan and create and connect with people so I could make something happen. That feeling afterwards is amazing, and it's something that I wish for all of you. Okay, next slide. Okay, so One of the coolest sort of concepts I've come across in recent years was this idea that there are two kinds of fear in the Hebrew language. And this comes from Tara Moore's book, Playing Big. And it's an excellent book. I totally recommend it if you're looking to find some motivation and tools to play bigger in your life. She has some like online groups that do the work together too, which is really great. But in the book, she talks about this rabbi that she knows and the different kinds of fear that are identified in the Hebrew language. And the first one is this pachad, right? This projected or imagined fear. And in the book, she talks about her kids know what this fear is, right? They talk about it like, oh, it's like if I go out for the soccer team and I don't get picked, or, you know, even the monster under the bed. Like I have all these ideas in my head about what's going to happen and it's super scary. And it just feels way overwhelming. And so that fear in Hebrew is called pachad. But there's another kind of fear that's really interesting. And that's the feeling that overcomes us when we inhabit a larger space than we're used to. So I'm originally from Oklahoma, and in northern Oklahoma is just big, wide open plains, open spaces. And coming back to Oklahoma after spending years living in the city, it was a little disconcerting having that big, wide open space. It felt like the possibilities were endless and there was nowhere to hide, right? This was that big open space. Similarly, or another translation is the feeling when we suddenly come into possession of considerably more energy than we had before. So if you've ever, I don't know, had like a religious experience where you've just really felt filled with awe or some sort of power greater than yourself, right? That can feel a little bit scary. And that goes into that last definition there, that what we feel in the presence of the divine, right? Like this opportunity where something very powerful has come up and we're not entirely sure how to handle it. So pachad is projected and imagined fear. Yirah is this sort of big, scary, but yet energetic and divine type of feeling that we get that sometimes feels like fear if we're not paying attention. Next slide. So here it is. This is how I think of yirah, right? Look at this woman. She's sitting on the cliff, right? Watching the sunrise. Maybe she's feeling really connected to the sort of natural world, to herself, to her small place that she has in the world to be able to make change. But it's kind of scary sitting there on that cliff. Like there's nothing there to protect her. She's just open and wide to all of it. So this is yirah. And then the next slide, go ahead, right? This is pachad. And this is a metaphor that I find really helpful, right? I don't know if you've met one of these. My husband calls them yipper dogs. I'm a dog person. I love dogs. Most of my dogs have been bigger, but we've seen these little dogs that are just terrified of everything and are there. Susie says, yep, she's seen it, right? They are there to protect their one person and they think everything is out to get them and they're super aggressive and they just lash out, and you cannot leave these dogs, you know, in a room by themselves. They will tear up everything, right? They will shit all over everything. They will make this huge mess. They are very difficult to control. This is what I imagine the pachad is, right? This is, and I have this dog and this little dog inside of me that whenever it feels threatened, it just growls and bites and snaps and won't let anybody near me because it's trying to protect me, right? So a woman I know I listen to a lot, her name's Brooke Castillo. She at one point mentioned this idea of we can't just put our fear, we just can't pretend like our fear doesn't exist, right? This dog doesn't exist. We can't just leave it at home by itself. One of the best ways to deal with this kind of fear is to acknowledge it, right? Like, I see you, buddy. I know you're scared. Calm down. It's okay. I'm going to put some boundaries around you though, right? And so she has this image, Brooke Castillo does, of putting your dog in a little carrier, right? We've seen all the big stars walk around with their dogs in their backpacks and everything. And that's what I want you to maybe kind of think of your fear. Like, I'm going to put it in this little carrier with me and I'm going to take it with me. And I'm going to take it with me to the big presentation. I'm going to take it with me as I fill out this job application. I'm going to take it with me as I tell my family that I'm moving across country to follow my dreams, right? Fear's still there. It's hanging out next to you. You're just not letting it control you and be part of the conversation. So as I was researching this talk, I was looking for some images of dogs in a dog carrier. So Melissa, if you'll advance it to the next slide. was sort of interesting what I came up with, right? So these are some funny sort of images, but I thought they worked really well with the metaphor, so I decided to keep them. So that one up there in the left with the case, that's kind of how I picture how I keep my fear, right? My fear is safe inside there. It's not going anywhere. Fear can still be part of everything that's going on and understand. It might bark, it might get a little upset, but it's safe in there. It's not going to hurt me. It's not going to sabotage what I'm trying to do, right? So that's generally how I think of it. And then if you go down, I thought it was kind of interesting. There's this woman that is, she's making her dog carrier like part of her accessories, right? And the way I was thinking about this was that sometimes if we bring our fear and our anxieties and we show up a little bit vulnerable with people and we show them like, yeah, I have these things that I carry around with me and they're with me everywhere I go and they're not exactly fun, but they're me and it's part of me. Sometimes that's a really good way to build a relationship, right? Is to be vulnerable and work with people who understand that we all feel scared. We all have these anxieties. And we just keep them in our pocket and we try to keep them from running the show. But it's part of who we are, and we manage it as best we can. And everybody has this to some extent. The other picture is the woman with the two dogs, and I guess I feel that's more of a sort of like, all right, I've got my anxiety on one side, and I've got my depression on the other, and they're part of me, and it's happening, and it's something I have to deal with. But again, not letting it ruin my life, and we're just everybody's going to come along with this. I'm going to take action towards my goals. I'm not going to let these guys stay at home by themselves and ruin everything. Or, you know, when I say stay at home, I guess I mean kind of like inside your heart or your head. And I'm bringing them with me. And then finally, I think that last picture, I don't even know if it's real. That seems like maybe not, but I liked the metaphor because some of us have some really big trauma we're carrying around with us, right? And it's uncomfortable and it's hard to manage and it feels weird and like we can barely keep this thing under control, but it's there and it's on our back and it's coming with us and we're doing the work to bring it along and carry it as best we can, right? So that's the dog metaphor. Thanks, Melissa. So the other person I really like when it comes to this kind of work is Brené Brown. So lots of us have read her books. So if you've read Rising Strong, you've probably come across some of these tools. And that's what I wanted to just point out to you today, some tools that you can actually use to help make this process easier. One I really like is the story I'm telling myself is, right? I use this a lot with my husband when he comes home, you know, maybe late for work, or we're a blended family. And if there are any stepmoms out there or that have gone through this process, like, I see you, like my heart goes out to you. It is incredibly difficult work. I tell people, look, I went through the gas chamber in boot camp. I would do that every single day to avoid trying this blended family stuff because it is so, so hard. I would say same thing if you're a kid from a blended family, right? But anyways, I tell him a lot when my husband and I are having discussions about what we're going to do with the kids. I often say the story I'm telling myself is you're not paying attention to me because you don't care. And it's really making me upset. And I need you to kind of get on board with this and listen to what I have to say instead of sort of like zoning out into your phone, right? Or something like that. And that gives him the space to not be defensive because it's about me, right? The story I'm telling myself. So that's one way to use this tool. I think the other way that's really powerful to use this tool is as a journaling exercise, right? If you have some fear that you're up against and you're not sure how to deal with it, think through what is the story you're telling yourself about this fear, right? Is it because you don't think you're qualified? Is it that you don't have the resources to be able to make this thing happen? Just be really honest and clear with yourself what that story is. And then once you get that all down on paper, and I do suggest you write it out, then you can start to figure out what's the new story that I want to tell myself, that I am capable, that I have support, that I am loved, that I do have the ability to take on this next challenge and do it with poise. And, you know, I've done it before, right? Whatever that story is, rewrite it for yourself so that you can start to internalize that and start getting closer to your goals. I'll just go through the next two really quickly. Have a 1-inch by 1-inch tiny piece of paper where you get to write down the people in the world, their names, who actually matter to you. And it's not the strangers, right, down at the bus stop or at, at the, presentation that you're going to do. It's not your boss, right? It's not your kids' friends' moms, right? Like all those people don't matter. The people whose opinions matter are on that piece of paper. And when I go out to do hard things, I take that piece of paper out because, right, there's only room for 1, 2, maybe 3 people on that. And when you look at the world that way and then think of what you're going to put on the line to achieve your goals, suddenly those people's opinions don't matter so much. And then the second tool I really like is this idea of a permission slip. So you actually write out at the beginning of your day in your journal, where post-it note, whatever, I give myself permission not to do this perfectly, right? I just took on this new job and I'm doing things imperfectly all the time. And before I walk in the office every day, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give myself permission to screw this up a little bit, right? To not show up exactly knowing everything all the time and controlling everything. Jill, you have permission to do that, right? And that just sets the foundation for you to be able to handle stress in a much more productive way and to be able to handle setbacks, right? So, next slide. Okay. So now we get to the second half of the presentation where we talk about those of you that say, you know what, fear is not the thing that's holding me back. I'm not scared, really. Really what it is that I'm just confused. Like, I'm not really sure what I want to do. Like, there's this option, I could do that, or I could do this. And I'm just feeling like really confused. And I just want to put one thing out there about that and just propose an idea to you. And that's the next slide. There it is. It's a trap. So I live with 4 boys. So Star Wars is about 50% of the conversations that we have at home. So if you're not familiar with this particular meme, it's from Star Wars. It's before the rebels are about to fly into a big battle. And guess what? It's a trap, right? And that's what saying that you're confused or that you don't understand is probably about, right? It is a way for you to avoid actually making a decision about something, and it's keeping you stuck, and it's keeping you from achieving some really cool things that you need to do for you and that the rest of the world needs you to do for us, right? And accomplish. So next slide. So I think we can all agree that being decisive is good, but I want to just spend a few minutes talking about why being decisive is good and why, and those reasons maybe will help you move a little bit closer towards your, excuse me, towards your goal and to be more decisive about things. So first thing is everything becomes faster. Once you make that decision, you can start making the next decision that comes after that, and the next decision after that, and the next decision after that, right? Then you start moving closer to your goals and you're not just stuck in the same place that you've always been stuck in. Once you make the decision, next thing is you start to grow, right? You make a decision, oh, maybe that wasn't the best decision. You learn something from it. You decide you're not going to do that next time, or you think I'm going to do this better, right? And you start to see the world in a more complex way, and you start to understand how the pieces fit together. You're not going to be perfect at it. Like I said, all these decisions some of them might show up as not so good, but at least you're learning something and at least you're growing. And along with that comes momentum, right? You start making one decision, the next decision becomes much easier, the decision after that becomes much easier, and everything starts to become clear, right? You start to see how you can actually win this thing or get this thing done or achieve this amazing goal, like start making the money, start the nonprofit, finish the book, right? Create that momentum for yourself and guard that momentum with your life, right? Because momentum can be everything. Don't let the momentum stop. Even if you have to do something small every day to keep towards that momentum, keep it up. And finally, decisions increase your confidence. You make one, turns out pretty good. Hey, that wasn't so bad. I'm going to make another decision and another decision. And I've got this. I understand. I clearly know how to make decisions. And you start internalizing that. The people around you start picking up on that and magic starts happening, right? So, and then the final thing I kind of want to point out on this slide is that all decisions are instantaneous. Many of us want to sit in that indecision and we want to do the research. We want to watch the YouTube videos. We want to read the books. We want to ask people's opinions. We want to think about it. We want to journal about it, right? All that stuff. When you make that decision, it's instant, right? And when you make that decision and it's instant, go all in. Like if you take nothing else away from this presentation, I would say it's that when you make a decision, be all in, leave everything else behind. And I know that's scary, and I'm going to give you some tools in a second to be able to make that less scary for you. But I just want to put out there that making a decision is instantaneous. And once you make that decision and once you flip that switch, go all in, right? That is your decision. Stick with it. Don't let yourself get talked out of it 2 or 3 days later. Next slide. Okay, so 8 tools for better decision making. I could have called this 8 questions, but these will all be really helpful as you're trying to make decisions about what you should do next. So first thing is, what's best case scenario versus worst case scenario? I know most of us like to go, let's just go with worst case scenario. I'm just going to spend all my time on worst case scenario, right? That little dog that's yipping and yapping likes to stay in worst case scenario because that's the fear. I feel like if I go with worst case, then nothing else matters, right? I can go with that. Next question you might want to ask is, what things are worth doing even if I fail? And this question I used when I decided to leave the corporate world to go start my own business, right? I could not stand another day sitting in that cubicle writing brochures about health insurance or car door handles. Like it was killing me and I couldn't stand it. And all I wanted to do was go and try this thing, this big, scary, important thing of starting a business and see if it worked. And I kind of decided, even if I fail, it's going to be worth it. I'm going to have learned something. I'm going to have moved myself further down the track. I'm going to have met some cool people, done some cool things. It's worth it, even if I fail. Another thing, idea number 3, what if both options turn out amazing, right? What if I stay in my job, recommit, decide to volunteer for some extra duties, apply for that new position, get promoted, right? Become very powerful in the company. 10 years, I'm, standing in front of the whole company, receiving an award for all the cool work I've done. Or what if I quit my job, start a company, it becomes insanely profitable, I have a ton of freedom, I make my own decisions, I work with cool people, organizations, I'm affecting real change, right? Both options are amazing. Let's just consider both of those amazing things and then try to make a decision from there. Number 4, what if failure just isn't that big of a deal, right? I know this is probably revolutionary for some of us. It was for me, like failure, not a big deal. I can't fail. Fail is the biggest thing in the whole world. It's not. And I would say another variation of number 4 is, what if I was a dude, right? Men don't seem to think a lot of the stuff that we think is that big of a deal. Why am I making this big of a deal? Like if I fail, I go on to something else. I have family that loves me. I have other options. I'll figure it out. Can I find a way to say yes to both is number 5. So maybe you start that business on the side. Maybe you start writing the book. You get up super early in the morning and start writing it, right? Is there a way that you can work it out to try and do both things at the same time? The only sort of caveat that comes along with that is if you're going to do that, you're going to have to say no to something else in your life. So be really clear about that and make that decision to say no if you're going to say yes to something else. Number 6 comes from Tara Moore's book as well. And that really is just sort of a meditation where you go forward in time and you visit yourself 20 years from now. And it's yourself that is wise and kind and warm and successful. And she's just the best possible options that you could have turned out, right? And you go forward and you think about that woman and you connect with her and you ask her, what should I do, right? And that best version of yourself always has the best advice. It's kind of an amazing, powerful tool if you use it right. If you want the actual recorded meditation, send me an email. I'll put my email at the end of the time and I'll send it to you because it's really kind of an amazing meditation for some people. Number 7, what moves you closer to who you want to be, right? And when you look out at the world, when you look at your heroes, what you want to accomplish, who you want to be, how you want to show up in the world, which of those decisions gets you closer to that? It's pretty straightforward. Number 6 is how Susie decided to join the Air Force. That's pretty amazing. That's awesome, Susie. Number 8 is, it's kind of simple and a little bit odd, but if you sometimes just get really quiet and close your eyes and just listen, and maybe it doesn't happen on the first time or the second time or even the third time, but just ask yourself that question, what would love do? That can be really powerful. I don't know why it works, but it just sometimes does. So I'll say a little bit more about my my decision to join the Army. Actually came down to a coin flip. And Melissa, if you go to the next slide, it has to do with this. What would it be like if you knew there was no wrong decision, only a wrong, word in quotes, way of thinking about that decision, right? And so when I was trying to decide whether or not I was actually going to enlist against my parents' wishes, I had no idea what this experience was going to turn out to be. I was in the bathroom at the recruiting station and I was thinking about, okay, I could stay in college. I could go through, get my degree, get married, have a couple of kids, go through the corporate ladder, like do all that work. I will be fine, right? That's a fine way to live your life. And there's a lot of cool and interesting things. There's going to be some suffering that goes along with that, but also some joy. Or I could go on this huge adventure. I could do something different than everybody else around me is doing. I have the opportunity to be part of something that's bigger than this university, than my family, than my community, to actually step forward and serve. It's really scary. I could be in harm's way, but I could also do some really cool, interesting things that there's no way I would have the opportunity to do if I stayed in college. Both of those things, I'm going to be okay. Either one, right? And so because that happened, I ended up reaching into my pocket. There was a dime there. I flipped a coin, and it turns out I was going into the Army, and the coin called it. And it was a fine decision, and it worked out really well for me. It's probably why I'm sitting here talking to you all today. Okay, next slide. So let's just do a quick recap. Remember, fear is part of being human. We all feel it. Understand that that's just part of playing the game. If you want to play big, if you want to reach your goals, you're going to have to deal with fear. That's all there is to it. The better you get at accepting that and practicing how to do that, the closer you're going to get and the faster you're going to get to your goals. Remember the difference between pachad and yirah, right? Pachad's the mean little dog. We're just going to put him in the carrier, put on our makeup in the morning, get on our shoes, head out into the world, bring that little dog with us, but we're not going to let that dog run our lives and ruin our chances for us to be our best selves. Or is it yirah, right? When you step into a room and you don't know anybody in that room and you're expected to connect and network and do all that scary stuff that goes along, right? Is it the little dog that's yipping, or is it actually the sort of feeling of stepping into something bigger than yourself? Are you being asked to do something that's, yes, hard, but something that will get you closer to your goals, something closer to you feeling more expansive, having more power, more money, all those things that we're all looking for. Finally, or I should say third, is to tell yourself a different story. Be really cognizant of how you're talking to yourself, right? What is that language that you're using? How are you describing what your world looks like? And maybe imagine a completely different world, right? And then finally, like I said, if you're going to make a decision, just do it. Sitting on the fence is a really painful place to sit, right? Nobody wants to be there for long. So look at your options, ask some really good questions, then make the decision to just do it and go all in. Ask for help from your friends, gather all your magic powers and your resources and get out there and do it, because the world really needs you to be able to move us all forward so we're all living in a better place. All right, so I think I have one more slide left. Thank you for showing up today. It's important to me, and I know you all are busy, but I am really excited about what you can potentially accomplish out there. Please connect with me. There's my email address. I'm on Facebook. I'm not too much on Twitter, Instagram, but happy to connect one-on-one. And if you have projects that you're looking for somebody to collaborate, like run them past me. I always love working with women veterans and always looking for opportunities to move our causes forward. So thanks for being here today. Melissa, I have to say a special thank you for just starting this organization that we can even be here today, and then continuing to do this amazing work that you're doing to bring us all together. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jill. So we have time for anybody have questions. You can either throw it in the chat or unmute yourself and ask or share. This is the time to do it.
Yes, LinkedIn, Susie. No, Leanne asks. Absolutely, I love LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is amazing. I think that it's what Facebook is supposed to be, and has, unfortunately, Facebook's just no longer a place where that happens. So
you're on LinkedIn?
I am on LinkedIn. Yep.
Okay, great. Thanks.
So Jill Hinton Wolfe should be pretty easy to find.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone have any good takeaways from today?
A couple of books that I'm probably going to go get, especially maybe Playing Big. Thank you.
Yeah, Playing Big is, she's got a lot of free content too. So yeah, Susie, just do it. Like, put the fear in the little basket and just make the decision and move forward on it. I think you'll be really happy.
That's where I'm at right now, Jill. With what you said, the very last part is just, you made a decision, you're ready to go with it. Like, I'm right there, but like I want to throw up at the same time. So that really stuck with me, because I'm hoping I'm making the right decision for me and my family with trying to get on to better opportunities, and hopefully that works. So hopefully this is.
Well, my heart just goes out to you. I know how hard that is. And so, yeah, kudos to you for even thinking about it, because so many of us just decide it's too hard and throw in the towel. And yeah, I wish you the best, and let me know what I can do to support you.
And I mentioned self-motivation at the beginning, because it really is not knowing, the unknowns ahead of us really doesn't give you enough, to motivate you to do a lot of things. So that's a scary thing for me still, self-motivation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as former military, right, a lot of us were trained, we grew up being told, don't step out of line, don't, right? Here's your rules, here's your SOP, you follow that, anything beyond that, you're gonna get in trouble for, right? So it makes sense that it's really hard for us to find the like rocket fuel to get out of that.
Yeah.
Anastasia says, don't walk on the grass. I yell at my kids all the time for walking on the grass.
All right, anybody else? Well, you've got Jill's contact information, so feel free to reach out directly to her. And Jill, thank you again. You did a phenomenal job, so we greatly appreciate your time today.
All right, everybody, have a good afternoon, and I hope that I get to meet you all at the Unconference next year. So,
thank you.
Thank you.